everyone. Thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. I'm Aaron Porras, here with ILTV's morning briefing. A red alert was sounded in the early hours today near the Gaza Strip, indicating the rocket had been fired from the Hamas-controlled Gaza Strip. Residents of the Sha'ar HaNegev and Sdot Negev regional councils reported at least 2 explosions, but at least 1 rocket is said to have landed within the Gaza Strip, and no reports of injury or damages on either side of the border were called in. Rocket and mortar attacks from the Strip are a semi-regular occurrence, but there have been an increase in rocket attacks recently, following President Trump's December 6th decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital. In other news, an ultra-Orthodox Israeli resident of the West Bank settlement Beitar Illit has now been indicted on several counts of racist violence against Palestinians. The 25-year-old suspect was brought to the attention of Israeli authorities after a Palestinian man employed as a street cleaner in Beitar Illit filed a complaint. According to the report, the suspect pulled over his car to talk to the Palestinian street cleaner and inquired whether or not he was indeed Arab. When the man confirmed that he was, the suspect allegedly returned to his car and proceeded to attempt to hit him multiple times before fleeing the scene. The Palestinian man was not hurt, but during questioning, the suspect admitted to at least 5 other acts of violence and vandalism targeting Palestinians in the past. Prime Minister Netanyahu has just met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow to discuss the looming threat of Iran in the region. Iranian forces have become increasingly entrenched in southern Syria, filling the power vacuum left by the Islamic State. Netanyahu has warned Putin that Israel will not hesitate to act to prevent further Iranian footholds. The 2 world leaders toured Moscow's Jewish Museum and Tolerance Center, marking the 75th anniversary of the rebellion of the Sobibor concentration camp. For Netanyahu, it was a fitting place to draw historical parallels to the current Iranian threat mounting on Israel's borders. The IDF claims to have struck military shipments from Iran to the terror group Hezbollah roughly 100 times just last year, often in southern Lebanon and southern Syria. This has sometimes placed Israel at odds with Moscow ever since Putin aligned himself with Syria in 2015, aiding President Assad's troops during the bloody civil war. Israel's defense minister has now warned that Iranian weapons could turn Lebanon into, quote, one big missile factory right on Israel's front door. But the army has already demonstrated in the past that, with or without Putin's permission, Israel will take every possible measure to avoid the nightmarish possibility. Employees of the United Nations Refugee Agency for Palestinians in Gaza have just launched an all-out strike, protesting the United States' decision to slash nearly half of its fund to the aid group. The boycott includes Gazan teachers, doctors, social service providers, and aid workers, all urging the United States to consider the humanitarian crisis above politics. The White House first announced the massive cuts earlier this month amidst international outrage, even from several Israeli politicians who also say pressure could turn spillover into a dangerous security threat. Though the White House denies the decision is meant to collectively punish the Palestinians for refusing to negotiate with the United States on Mideast peace in the wake of Trump's Jerusalem decision, President Trump himself seemed to contradict those words just last week. At a meeting with Israeli Prime Minister, he told reporters that, quote, that money is on the table and that money is not going to them unless they sit down and negotiate peace, end quote. Meanwhile, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas is currently in Jordan, meeting with King Abdullah II. The growing anxiety in Gaza is surely on both of their minds, as well as figuring out a new strategy for the Palestinians moving forward. According to a new report by the R.U.N.R.W.A nonprofit organization, due to a combination of mismanagement and resistance from private insurance companies who are supposed to be paying, the Israeli government has been footing the bill for work-related car accidents for the past 4 decades. The NII, or the National Insurance Institute, has ended up paying out claims to the tune of over $991 million in just the past 10 years. In fact, R.U.N.R.W.A predicts that Israeli road accidents have cost the economy over 16 billion shekels, or over $4.7 billion annually. If this keeps up then, the NII is set to file for bankruptcy in the next 15 years, which would then leave the hundreds of annual Israeli car accident victims, and many more, in even more dire straits. It seems the issue over the segregation of the sexes at the Western Wall has finally traveled overseas, as following United States Vice President Pence's latest visit, the Globe's newspaper is threatening to sue the rabbi who oversees the Jerusalem holy site. During Pence's speech in the Western Wall Plaza, female reporters and photographers were separated from their male counterparts to the back of the crowd. Eventually, they had to stand on chairs and remove a tarp just to see. This is opposed to when President Trump visited, and men and women were separated but had equal access. Following the incident, the Globe sent a letter of protest and threatened to sue, demanding different arrangements in the future as well. United States Ambassador to Israel David Friedman also received the complaint, but has not yet responded. Western Wall Rabbi Shmuel Rabinovich responded by writing an apology to the Globe's editor and by inviting the Globe's staff back to the plaza for a visit in the future. That's all for now. I'm Aaron Porras, and see you later with our main daily broadcast from Israel at 2 p.m. Eastern Time.